new commitment to putting it into action. Their time has come.
A couple months since I've spoke up, but I do faithfully listen. One of the first impressions that I've got is it seems to me that we need more justice-based leaders. Another question with regards to the comment on say no to socialism. I'm hopefully optimistic that we're not saying yes to capitalism. If capitalism is defined with a core belief of greed, socialism is a core belief of envy. Is there an alternative or a third way?
Well, of course there is. But I think in a way it can be understood if you take that word capitalism, right? Mm-hmm. What is the root of capitalism?
Capital.
Well, we say capital, but what's the source of capital?
That actually means the head or
the head, yes. Capita, the head, yes?
Yep.
So the word capitalism actually referred to something that arises from or out of the activity of the head, right?
Yep.
Who is the head?
Agreed.
Who is the head? That's why I think we sometimes have church, because ultimately God is the head. And what capitalism really means, it even meant it in Adam Smith, though a lot of people try to misunderstand this, okay, is an understanding of how one deals with the perpetuation of life in a material sense, the form of life in which we find ourselves here as a result of God's will. How we do that in such a way as to respect God's will and acquit our responsibility toward Him. That's capitalism. And I remember thinking about that many years ago, and it's part of what has cemented my sense that a right understanding of economics has a moral ground or foundation, and that moral ground or foundation is especially centered around what I was talking about previously, the oikos, the root of the word economics. It's ikosnomos or oikosnomos. It means the management of the household. So the key unit of economics is the household, and the government of the household is a theocratic government. This word that some of these people love to hate, theocracy, that word is appropriate when applied to family government. For at the end of the day, parents must act in direct response to that which God requires of them. That is why the family is ultimately not rooted in human will. It is a natural institution that is rooted in God's will, and that ultimately is governed in light of God's relationship with the parents. And so it's also the reason why it pre-exists the government and has priority in one sense over government in the way we talk of it with these state and federal institutions. So if you look at capitalism in that way, right, you're then going to be talking in the first instance about the right management of the household so as to achieve the goal of survival and self-sufficiency in a material sense, right? All in the context of acquitting God's will, that is to say, respecting the gift of life that He has shared with us. And in that way as well, if you think of it, and this is something that I think then becomes a principle in a larger sense, if you look at how the family operates, the family is actually about a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Communal ownership, a communal belonging. If it is the one unit of human life in which, rightly understood, the word communism actually applies, because you're talking about a community in which nothing is done except for the mutual good of those who are part of the family. That's the proper way for family life to proceed. So that in a sense, there is no taking and no giving. there is only sharing. Because whatever it is I seem to give to another member of my family, I also am taking in the form of satisfaction at their good. So there is that sense of common ownership. And as a result of that common ownership, a sense that we all derive the benefit. And therefore, when we make a contribution, we are in effect contributing to ourselves, working for ourselves, even as we work for every other member of the family. And I think that if you then apply that to capitalism, you get some of the ideas that I've been a champion of for many years, in which instead of seeing this big opposition between management and workers and so forth, you get people to try to understand that at the end of the day, the enterprise is the goose that lays golden eggs for everybody, and therefore everybody has to see the health of that enterprise as their good. But they can only do that if they are sharing in the fruits to a satisfactory degree. And that's why I advocate expanded capital ownership and other things that in some ways help to efface what we understand as the difference between the worker bees and the management. But I also think, by the way, and this gets us back to where the conversation began, that some of the things that are emerging in terms of our use of 21st century possible technologies and what it's doing to change the way we work together is actually helping us to implement this kind of a vision. Because even in corporate world now, they're realizing that at some level, each person is the manager of their own task. And that unless you are willing to act and interact with them in that way, if you treat people only as subordinate workers, you can't get the best out of them. But if you treat them with the respect that is owed to their management of the particular task or function that they are contributing, then they are going to bring more to the table. You are going to be more open to what the resources they really have to offer you, and the whole enterprise is going to thrive as a result. So these kinds of ideas, I think, are their time has come.
Value-based management systems, and the other one that's been incorporated is justice-based management. Mm-hmm. They are spreading, and hopefully they'll go further. Have you've obviously read John Paul's and some of the other encyclicals by Pius XI, mm-hmm. Where they bring up this subsidiarity and personalism. Mm-hmm. Is there a correlation with this new reality, this new way that you're expounding on in your think bit?
Well, see, I have to be careful, though. I know we like the word new, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't really think of what I'm saying as new, though. I think of it as, in a way, a restoration of something that has kind of been the idea that we're supposed to conform to, that God's been trying to share with us, since he began sharing.
He is sharing.
And so I think that in that sense, if there's something new at the moment, it is only a new sense of the relevance of what God is sharing and has shared, and perhaps an effort to get people to make a new commitment to putting it into action in the world around us. Because part of what has happened, and Christians, I think, along with others, have fallen into this trap, is we've fallen into the trap of believing that we are inventing the future.
Yeah.
But there is one being who has seen the future, and who, even as we live here, he lives in that future. And so we ought to be listening to him.
I believe.
and so in that sense, I think, let's acknowledge that God is the creator, and then follow his guidance so that we can, in some sense, realize the future that in his loving goodwill he has planned for us. And that is the only sense in which I ultimately believed in a planned economy. But it's the planned economy of the whole universe, and the planner is God.
Amen.
He's the only one I trust.
The idea of stewardship enters into all of it as well, which is stewardship to God first, and then to our fellow man, our loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and loving your neighbor as yourself would be a big part of this as well.
See, but that has always been intended, I think. Think even of the language that we use in business relationships, all of which language like fiduciary and confidence and confiding and so forth and so on. It has fide as its root, right? Which is faith. And so at the end of the day, I think there's always been this implicit acknowledgement of the role of faith in what we call economic life. But we have allowed these people more and more to denature our understanding, to turn us away from that sort of godly root of our understanding. And I guess what I believe is that we should now, without shame and with consistency, just try to think it through. And what we'll come up with may seem to some people new, but what we'll realize is that it's not new at all. It's just us trying to, sort of get back in line with some of the ancient wisdom that God has shared with us.
These are the kind of things that I've been preaching for over 30 years until I retired. Mm-hmm. And I still, when I go to the different places, Bible studies and what have you, I still teach and preach those. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that are going to last forever.
And I think the wonderful thing that Guy focuses on and focuses us on is the consequences that this has for our understanding of all that we should expect and do in terms of our economic life. And I think that that's right. And in that sense, capitalism understood as some kind of unbridled greed is just wrong. It's a wrong concept. It's a concept that actually reduces, quote, economic life to a competition among criminals.
Well, that's what the ruling elite would like for us to think. Mm-hmm. And if they can get us to think of a good thing as an evil thing, then mm-hmm. they've got us whipped. Mm-hmm. And they've done that way too long. We need to reinstate what it really means, like you're talking about, Alan.
Yeah, I believe it was Karl Marx that first coined the political phrase of capitalism, Capitalist Manifesto, when he suggested that the capitalists will hang themselves, give them enough rope. I definitely agree that the definition, and it seeped into our public psychic and conscience, totally wrong. But I think to combat that, somebody has to bring up the element of justice mm-hmm. In order to, like the Constitution says, establish justice.
That's right.
And if we don't practice it, we will never get to the point where it's lived.
And the thing that I think we can most effectively do is to remind people of what is so often forgotten now, and that is the connection between the family, understood as a moral unit and a locus of moral responsibility, and economic justice. And beginning our thinking from there, I think helps us to come to concepts of enterprise and management and all of these things that respect the requirements of justice without the need to then become kind of idolatrous worshippers of government control.
I think also the people who define the terms are the ones that rule the day. And we need to redefine the terms that they have defined improperly mm-hmm. and need to get these out to the people.
Good. Alan, I'm going to leave you. Thank you for the call tonight.
Okay, thank you for being with us. New commitment to putting it into action. Their time has come.